Well, it's autumn time and a bit of rain due today actually, but nice and dry at the moment. Down in the Colne Valley, one of my local waters, Thorny Weir. Not been here for a while, but very pleased to be back on the banks. The Thorny Weir complex is a place that's sort of quite close to my heart really. It's very local to where I live, and yeah, I've been coming back and forth to these lakes for a few years now, and on and off, but something about these lakes, I always like fishing them. And although there's 3 lakes here, they're all very different in their own way. They've all got a nice feeling about them, and although they're day ticket, you very much get the feeling that they could flip over to being a syndicate tomorrow. You know, they're very quiet. They're not manicured. That's what I like. You know, you get a lot of waters these days, especially day ticket lakes, where they're busy, everything's concrete or manicured, and this has still got a nice wild feel about it. The 𝗪𝗁 itself is an absolute beautiful lake with some absolutely beautiful carp. It's the one that I've spent the least time on of all the lakes on the complex here, but for that reason it's nice to come back in here and give it a go, because there's so many lovely, I mean, the fish in here are a typical Colne Valley mirror carp. You know, lovely long, lean, those lovely little rounded tails, and mostly scaly fish. So, you know, there's a lot of good reasons to come here. I've got 24 hours on here, and we're going to be talking about the bait that I use and fishing this time of year. It's not going to be easy. You know, we're not on a heavily stocked lake, but there are some absolute crackers in here. So hopefully we're going to see 1 or 2 of those, and yeah, talk through the tactics of how we go about it and what we're using this time of year. So yeah, fingers crossed we're going to get a fish or 2. Right, so we've been in the swim a few hours now. All the rods are in position, and yeah, basically I chose this swim. There was a number of swims down this bank that were free, but one thing, I wanted a little bit of depth of water. I find this time of year, autumn time, they start looking for a little bit more depth, deeper. You know, they start to move out of the margins a little bit more. But at the same time, I've sort of hedged my bets a little bit, because this swim has also got a nice snag tree to the right, and it's an area that I know has produced fish in the past. So yeah, I've got a little bit of the best of both worlds. So my right hand rod is fishing down to the tree, and I've still got a decent depth of water there, about 5 to 6 foot, and it was a nice clean donk on the bottom as it landed. So yeah, I'm very happy with that one. I've put all my rods actually out with the bait boat, because I try and get my rods out with the best chance of actually catching a fish and the least disturbance. And these swims haven't been fished for a couple of days, so I wanted to get them out there as quickly as possible, least disturbance as possible, and that for me is the best way of doing it. And the other 2 rods, middle and left hand rods, are both fishing to an open water area just straight out in front, and again it's got a nice bit of depth. They're both in about 8 feet of water. And in the past, there has been a fair bit of weed out in front. But again, the beauty of the boat with the sounder is I could see little patches of weed, but not too much. And, you know, I was able to find nice clear areas quickly, drop them on the spot, and both of those landed with a nice sort of donk on the bottom. I've not got much bait around them. It's sort of fishing for 1 bite at a time at the moment. So it's just a little sprinkling of bait, a few mouthfuls. Hopefully that's enough to get a bite, but I feel like it's the right area for this time of year. You know, it's got all the things I'm looking for. I've seen actually a little bit of activity out there as well, so yeah, it's all looking good, and yeah, it's just all down to the carp now to make that mistake and make it happen. Well, we've been here a few hours now, and quiet so far, but most important thing, I needed a cup of tea, so had a cup of tea, but I'm actually going to go and have a look around the other side, because I've seen a bit of activity around there, and it feels like I'm a little bit hemmed in this corner now. There's a lead sort of landing around the area, and yeah, we've not actually seen any activity in this corner, where I've seen a few fish show now, and they're all on the far side. So it's one of the reasons why I've only got the rods out and I've left the gear on the barrow, because of this very situation, that I might be on the move. But I'm gonna have a look first and just see how it looks around there. Yeah, that's all I'd say. You know, gonna reel in the rods, have a quick walk round, maybe on the move, watch this space. It just looks so carpy over here, it really does. This was one of the spots where we saw fish show. Don't look like anyone's been here for ages, and yeah, a move's on the cards. So I'm going to go back round there, get the gear, get the rods on the barrow, and yeah, get round here. Well, that was a bit of a trek and a half. It's a lot warmer than what I thought it was going to be, but we're here, that's the main thing. And yeah, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So in the swim now, new swim, new confidence. So I'm going to get the rods out, and fingers crossed. Well, bait for this session is the good old citrus, and you know, we're coming towards winter now, but in the past it's always been seen as a winter bait, and you know, for me it's certainly not that. In actual fact, a couple of weeks ago I was in Italy, where temperatures were in the high 20s, and citrus turned out to be the best bait of all the ones I took. So there we go, it's an all year round bait. Yeah, I think one of the things, people used to use it as singles, or you know, little groupings of bait, but they've actually changed the base mix that the citrus is based on, and for me it's made it a much better bait, and particularly an all year round bait. So it's a good food base, and yeah, one that the fish really like. So I'm happy to use it at any time of year. And yeah, I'm on the 12 millers here, and it's basically to get a better spread of the flavour out there. Rather use a few, you know, a handful of small baits rather than a couple of big ones. And along similar lines, I've got the citrus pellet out there as well. And again, it smells lovely. It's got that lovely citrus flavour, but the pellet's going to break down a lot quicker than the boil is. So again, it's all about getting that flavour and attraction out there as quick as possible. Hook baits wise, you turn up at lakes these days and people say, oh, they're all coming out on pink, they're all coming out on white. Well, yeah, we've got something to cover all options here, including yellow, which only used to be available in Europe, but thankfully now I've got my hands on some of those as well. So there's something to cover all options there. Whatever you fancy, there's something to cover it, but all with that lovely citrus flavour. And yeah, it's one of those flavours that just catches carp all around the world, and any time of year now as well. But it's what I've put my faith in to catch me a fish today. Evenings drawing in now, as they do. They draw in quickly this time of year. But it's looking good. With, you know, we're in the new swim, got the hide up, which is the main thing. So rain is imminent if the weather forecasters have got it right, which of course they always do, don't they? No, they don't, do they? It was actually meant to have rain all day today, and it's turned out to be quite a nice day, but it's still coming, that's for sure. But there we go. So rods are all in position, and it's a different swim to the first one, quite a bit different. You know, around there we had mostly clean bottom, 8 to 9 foot depths, and it looked good first of all, but that sort of initial enthusiasm soon sort of wore off. And it's that old saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, and the other side looks a lot better. So that's where we are now. And it's shallower around here. You know, a lot of the bottom is about 2 to 3 foot, but there is a nice channel out there that drops down to about 4.5 foot. And I've placed all 3 rods in that channel at various, it sort of cuts in and out a little bit. So I've got them all in that channel at various distances. all with the same tactics basically as earlier. You know, I'm trying to nick a bite. I don't think the fish are really getting on it at the moment, so I'm trying to nick a bite or two. Little sprinkling around each rod. You know, I've got the 12mm citrus, the pellet over the top, with that same idea of, you know, getting that attraction out in the water, but not too much of it. You know, I just want them to hone in on that one little pop-up that I've got out there on 2 of the rods. I've got 2 rods with pop-ups, one with a snowman. It looks good though. You know, I feel quite confident if fish are moving through this area, and we have seen them in this area earlier today, which was one of the reasons for moving round here. You know, if they're moving through this area, I think they're going to go through that slightly deeper channel. So yeah, you know, all in all, I'm pleased I've made the move round here. It's looking good. So it's all down to the fish. Hopefully I'll be seeing you a little bit later this evening with a fish. If not, fingers crossed for one during the night, and well, I'll catch you in the morning. Oh, it's a lovely autumn morning in the Colne Valley. Sun's just come up, the rain stopped. We had quite a bit of rain in the evening going into the night, then a big full moon actually come up for a little while before that disappeared behind the cloud again. And well, there were 3 of us fishing last night, and we sort of said between us that it's not an easy lake, but there's a good chance that one of us is going to get a fish, and that sort of happened. Neil's had a lovely fish actually just down the bank, so just a little while ago, so we're going to have a look at that in a minute. But yeah, you know, it's a tricky venue and it's not a runs water, so we was expecting it to be tough. The good news is that I was sitting there sort of licking my wounds this morning thinking, oh, you know, it hasn't happened, and a fish boshed out literally 10-15 yards out in front of me where I didn't have a rod. You know, I had all my rods sort of longer ranges, and as per usual, one shows just in front of me, rod's about 10 yards out. So anyway, I have put a rod on that spot, and it's amazing. You can never find out enough about what's in front of you, and I decided to put it out there with the boat just to give it like a good presentation, a gentle drop, because I knew in my head it was only shallow there, you know, 18 inches. Well, once I actually got to where the fish showed, there's a nice little deep hole there, 3.5 foot, clean on the bottom. Never found it last night. I wish I had, but you know, good thing is I've got a rod on the spot now. Bite time feels like it's starting to run out. You know, you always feel like that evening, early morning is the best time for a bite. But previous experience on here has shown me that you can catch any time during the day. So yeah, there's a chance it could literally go any minute now, and I know I'm on fish. That's the main thing. So it's all you can do. As tricky as it is, you know, it's not the easy. You know, we avoided the easy water really because it was the busiest, and we've come on to basically a lake where everyone was sort of ignoring because, you know, it's the trickier of the waters here. But everyone's a bit special in here, so if we do get one, it's going to be a special one. And yeah, well, what can you do? The main thing is to get yourself on fish with a good bait, a rig that works, and we've done that, so fingers crossed it's going to happen.
Well, I was lucky enough to join Ian and Steve down at Thorny Weir last night, and I was just about to get my rods out when I seen this cheeky little bag of citrus sticking out of Steve's bivvy, and he was explaining to me there's a new base mix, and I was like, can you spare a kilo? So luckily enough, Steve gave me a kilo. We put this out last night, and then this morning it rewarded me with an absolute belter of a 28-pound mirror. So we'll get this one back. I'll let Ian and Steve carry on doing what they're doing, because I've got a few little things I need to do myself.
Yeah, so I do a lot of varied fishing, different venues, different countries, you know, different tactics, different rules on those venues that I visit. So I've tried to simplify my fishing as much as possible, and on the rig front, I've well, for the last year been using the multi-rig, and you know, for basically that reason, it's simplified my fishing so much. You know, take here for example, Thorny Weir, it's a barbless hook only rule. So you know, these are the rigs that have literally stayed on my rods for ages now, but I've changed the hooks from barb to barbless. You know, it's simple to do, a few seconds, loop off, swap the hook back on. And the other thing is that I'm able to change tactics, as you know, instantly really. I did have a snowman on that yesterday, but the swim that I moved to around here is a lot of sort of silkweed on the bottom, and I was a bit worried about that getting buried in the bottom, so I've changed that to a pop-up. And again, you know, same rig, everything's the same. I was just able to bung a pop-up on there, a bit of putty, and it's a pop-up rig. And that rig enables me to just go everywhere, all those different venues, all the different rules. It suits everything. And on top of that, it's a very effective rig. You know, all the fish I've caught in the last year have virtually been on that. So, you know, I'm happy enough to use that anywhere, anytime, any place, any tactics. Yeah, multi-rig does what it says. It's useful in a multitude of ways, and yeah, I love it. You know, I love making things as easy and as simple as possible for me, and yeah, the multi-rig does it. Yeah, so when it comes to tying the multi-rig, I use the skin link. This is 20-pound skin link, and yeah, just about, what is that, about 8-9 inches, about standard. And yeah, just I make a little break in it about 1 inch down, and that just gives that little hinge effect on the hook length. And hook wise, chod claws, they're the ones for me. I love using the chod claws. Size 6 today, could be anything between about a 7, 6, 5, doesn't matter, they're easy to change. So going down to the lead system, yeah, I've just got a small lead on there today because I'm fishing over weed and I don't want it to sink in too far, and that's just fished on a little helicopter system. So yeah, in theory that just lands on the bottom, presents the pop-up nicely over the top, and there we go. Well, it's that time we all dread. The barrow's just about loaded, and yeah, I'm ready for that long push back to the car park. It's been fun, but it didn't work out for me this time. You know, I've ended up with a big blank, unfortunately. Tried hard. We moved swims, moved from one side of the lake to the other, found good spots, saw a few fish, but you know, that is fishing, isn't it? But I'll tell you something, since we've been here, you know, it was always going to be a tough ask because it's the tricky lake. We avoided what would have been the better lake of the two in terms of chances, I suppose, because it was the busier. You know, we've come onto this one which was a bit quieter, but you know, it was the tougher ask, and that's how it's turned out. But yeah, I'll tell you something, since we've been here, there's been one fish out the lake, and guess what? It was caught on citrus. So, you know, there's a big positive. I'm pleased about that. And yeah, you know, that's fishing. It don't work out every time, but I've enjoyed it. I've seen a lovely fish. Thankfully, I supplied the bait it was caught on. And yeah, that's how it goes. So I can go home with a smile on my face, and you know, I'm going to be back here before long anyway, having another go. So hope you've enjoyed it anyway, and see you out on the bank sometime.